Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Philosophy of Religion. This is Professor Swice. I hope we get things working this time. Mortimer Adler, the founder of the Encyclopedia Britannica at the University of Chicago, said more implications follow from the belief or the denial of God than any other proposition. He really believed fundamentally that the concept of God as a theistic entity, as a creator, sustainer of the universe, is one of the most important concepts in all of mankind's history. Or, on another perspective, it's probably the most ingenious delusion ever perpetuated on any branch of people or society. It's either true and very powerful, or a delusion of magnitude that nothing else compares to it. And let's go ahead and get started of what this class is about, philosophy of religion, and how that actually works in a way that is helpful for all of you to understand where that goes and how it applies to our lives, not only in our spiritual journeys, but also in our understanding of the world around us. Okay, so let's screen number 2. Okay, so in front of you now, you should see the words philosophy of religion. Let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we can see it.
And it says defining, and it's a larger screen, right?
Yes.
Great, great. Okay, so what is philosophy of religion? So here is a picture from the Sistine Chapel in Rome. I got to see that when I visited. It's magnificent, created by Michelangelo. It's a God creating Adam. Of course, they're Anglo-Saxon white. But they're not necessarily that, because man apparently was created in the Middle East, which is where I was born, in Jordan, actually. So a little bit darker than that, but nevertheless. Let's move on. Philosophy of religion is a branch of philosophy that asks serious questions about religion. So philosophy asks, what do we believe, and are the ideas that we believe actually fundamentally true, and do they make sense? Are they logically coherent? Religion asks, how do people believe these things, and what is it that religions believe about God, heaven, hell, miracles, woman, men? And that's what religion asks. But when you put the two together, philosophy of religion is an analysis of both of those together. And the world religions, 31% of the population identify as Christians, Christos, which is the Greek word for Messiah, which is the chosen one, the savior of the world. Muslims, Muslim means to submit. 20% of the population are Muslim, one of the fastest growing religions of the world, primarily by reproduction. Muslims have on average about 9 children per every 2 that Christians have. But that's an identification by family and society rather than by personal journey. Non-religion atheists are actually growing primarily in Europe than more than anywhere else, but US has a large segment as well. Are all religions the same? I'm going to submit to you that the answer to that question is not what you think it is. I think what religions, and people look at this way and say, oh, they all worship the same God, right? Well, in a general perspective, they do worship God. But when you ask the question, who is this God, and what does this God do, and how are the characteristics of this God understood, the answers are vastly different. So when I say to you, I'm going to Paris, and you say I'm going to Paris too, does that mean we're going to the same place? Well, not necessarily, because there's a Paris, Illinois, and there's also a Paris, France. There's 2 different places, but they have the same name. So the different reference point in religion, just because they use the same words doesn't mean they're talking about the same things. They're not. They're actually fundamentally different and superficially the same. As you can see from this chart here, it tells you about the founders, the dates, and the God and the sacred books. They're fundamentally different here, as you can see. They all, in one sense, agree that there's a superpower in the universe. They agree in moral systems that run the world. And if we don't follow those moral systems, there'll be serious consequences. Either that'll come naturally, or it'll come through judgment at the end. But do all religions worship God or gods? This is very interesting because look at Buddhism. Gautama Buddha, who was called the enlightened one or the awakened one, never believed in a fundamentally personal God. Buddhism is an atheistic religion. It's primarily a philosophy of life based on a transcendental force that runs the universe, similar to Confucianism and Jainism because it's from the East. So not all religions believe in God. That may be a shock to you, but that's the case. Every religion should answer these fundamental questions. And let me see if I could make this clearer because it's not showing as an area here. Let me change the color of this and put it back up. Okay. Let's see, let's make it smaller and move it over. There you go. Okay, let's start this again. Okay, so every Christian should follow, every religion should follow these fundamental questions. Where are we from? That's origin. Why are we here? That's a meaning. Why is there so much suffering and death? That's theodicy. How should we live? That's morality. And what will happen to us upon our death? That's destiny. So origin, meaning, theodicy, morality, and destiny. Every fundamental question of human life, religion tries to answer. That's why so many people follow religions, because it gives them a guide, a compass, a GPS to life. And the fundamental question you need to ask yourself is, am I following a religion that is coherent and true, or am I following something that just makes me feel good? Because heroin could do that, although I strongly don't recommend it. Or some of the video games, or a bottle of whiskey. But see, you need something that not just makes you feel good. You need something that actually gives you meaning and significance in life and helps you become a better person and the society around you as well. Religion comes from revelation. So like, for example, God loves me, God will save the world, etc. Philosophy comes from reasoning. Questions like, does God exist? God created the world, evil can be explained, or it can only be one God. See, philosophy analyzes these things. Now, when I say God here, I'm not just referring to a supernatural being, because there are multiple of those according to religious traditions. But I'm talking about the omnipotent, omniscient creator, sustainer of the universe. There could actually only be one perfect being like that. Why? Because think about this philosophically. If such a being exists that is omniscient, that means knows all things, all powerful, that means is stronger and more able to do anything in anything logically. Imagine two of these beings existed and they arm wrestled or they played chess. See, they can't even begin the game because they already know who won. They already know what the other will do before it even started the process. It's a logical conundrum of paradoxes that will result in creating a system where everything collapses in on itself. That's why there can only be one God, because it's illogical for there to be two perfect beings. Evil can be explained. If you logically understand what good is, you can understand evil is a negation of the good. See, what I'm doing here is using philosophy. And religion gives you an understanding with the revelation of the prophets and others and tell us that God loves or takes care of us and wants us to have a pleasant, peaceful heart, no matter what the storms are in life. And that comes from revelation. And if you put the two together, you can analyze them. That's where you get philosophy of religion. All right, look at these terms here. They're interesting. Atheist, agnostic, and I have believer and follower. Now, if you take these terms and you break them down, in religion, they're essentially important to understand that an atheist is one who denies that God exists. Now, modern atheists have changed that definition. They said atheism now is a denial of the belief in God, or a belief that says, I have no belief in God. So that they try to get away from that because they understand that an absolute atheist is a logical problem, because an atheist, by definition, is one who knows that God doesn't exist. But in order for you to know that, you would have to have omniscient knowledge. Omniscient knowledge is having all knowledge in the universe beyond Earth, space, and time. And the only way you'll have that is if you were omniscient. You would have to be God to know that. Because there's no way to know for sure. So that modern atheists have changed the definition and updated it. Although that modern definition is problematic, just to say I deny belief in God is a problem, because my coffee cup lacks belief in God too. That doesn't mean my coffee cup is an atheist. Or my stapler lacks belief in God. That doesn't make it an atheist. So those definitions are problematic. Nevertheless, that's the definition. An agnostic, the word a, by the way, in Greek means negation, to negate or to move away from something. So a theist is one who believes in God. An atheist is one who denies God. Agnostic is one who has knowledge. That's gnosis, that's what the word means. Agnostic is one who denies knowledge. So a hard agnostic says no one can know if God exists. And there's a soft agnostic, one who says, I'm not sure if God exists, but it's possible. So if you are trying to have a good conversation to see if there's such a proposition may be true, a soft agnostic would be your best bet. A hard agnostic probably would rather go have a cup of coffee, talk about real estate, and travel rather than talk about God. Because, of course, nobody can know about God exists, which I think is an arrogant proposition. How can he know that? But nevertheless, a believer in God, which is the vast majority of people on the planet, believe there's a God, believe there's a sustaining force that made and sustains the universe. Now, a follower, an advocate of God, not only believes, but struggles to obey and worship God, and God is incorporated into his daily life in struggles and pains and loves and hopes and dreams. He usually goes to worship services or reads holy books, does the prayers, does the rituals, and sincerely wants to walk a proper path. Guys, in my experience as a professor in teaching philosophy of religion for so many years, so many students tell me, Professor, I'm spiritual, not religious. Have you heard that before? What they try to say is, I don't want to follow these set rules made by these structured religions. And I understand that. But did you know something interesting? In the theological enterprise, the demons are actually spiritual, not religious. Ooh, that one hit below the belt. Yeah. To say you're spiritual, not religious, is to absolve yourself or divorce yourself from some kind of spiritual authority above you. But the highest authority is God. And the more you join with other spiritual believers, and you do that long enough, slowly, by default, so sociologically, psychologically, you start developing rituals. And then suddenly you become a religion. Then after a while you grow and there's corruption grows, and some of the children in that religion leave and they say, I'm spiritual, not religious. And the process starts again and again. Religious practices. Let me talk about this for a little bit. So, there's a concept in philosophy of religion called realism. Realism is a concept that says what religions actually speak about is actually real. It's concrete in the universe. So something real would be like a microwave oven, or the president of the United States, or my shirt. But what about other things like heaven and hell, God and souls? Are those real? In that way, although they're not physical, they're just as concrete as everything else, but we just can't feel them or see them right now. That's realism. Non-realism says, no, these things are not concrete. They're not part of everyday reality. They're only poetry. And realism says the idea that religious beliefs about what really exists independent of what we think. So whether you believe in heaven or hell is irrelevant. Heaven and hell exist. The vast majority of adherents in the world really believe in demons and heaven and hell and angels, and some actually believe in other spiritual beings like genies or other gods. Non-realism says, look, religious claims are not about realities. They're about archetypes and social norms. They help people make sense of the world. Like you got to make sense of evil. So we create an avatar called Satan or the devil, and we call him evil. We got to make sense of the world, so we create a pie in the sky being in heaven that created it, and we'll call him God. And many religious thinkers and philosophers of religion are non-realist. Are you a realist or a non-realist? That's the question. Which one do you identify with? Here they are. Think about this, guys. Is religion the most important source of truth and goodness in the world? Is that where we establish it? Because every nation in the world has a religion in one way or another that they follow, or multiple religions. Is religion the world's greatest illusion? The thing people really believe is the most important source for truth and goodness, but it's all superstition and sometimes oppression. Or is religion the world's greatest evil, to keep the weak-minded in line and civil by those in power? Or finally, D, for those who don't think or don't like to think, would rather be having a cup of wine and a margarita right now. Don't care. Where do you fall? Seriously, A, B, C, or D? Think about it. Now, here's another question that comes up, is which religion is the truth? Well, here are some options. One of them is the truth. None of them are the truth. Perhaps many faith groups are different manifestations of the true God, even though the rituals and practices differ. Or perhaps a historical faith group was the truth, but now that faith is lost. Or 5, perhaps the true God allowed false gods and religions to exist to test the faith of people. These false religions have some truth, of course. Otherwise, people wouldn't follow them. So those are 5 options. Which one do you more find to be the most rational in your quest? Let's move on here. All right, so we talked about this. Okay, tools for thinking about religion. You can use logic. Logic has certain things like the laws of non-contradiction, valid arguments, non-ambiguous arguments. Archaeology, manuscript evidence, historical collaboration. Those are ways people could understand whether the place called Jerusalem existed, or there was a place called Mecca, or whether the tomb of Joseph existed, or whether there's a burial site for Jesus, etc. Or is there a Kaaba that Muhammad talked about in the Quran? The archaeology confirms whether these things are right. See, Mormonism has a problem with that, those of you who have a Mormon background, because Joseph Smith claimed that there was an entire civilization of Jewish believers who believed in Jesus Christ. And after he rose from the dead in Jerusalem, he flew over to the United States and appeared to the people here in the US over Illinois, actually, and talked to them. The problem is there's no archaeological evidence for a Jewish group who lived in the in Illinois back in 33 AD. So Mormons have an issue with that, but nevertheless, many Mormons try to make sense of that. Manuscript evidence. Is the manuscript evidence we have of the Bible, or the Quran, or the Bhagavad Gita actually reliable? It hasn't been changed and manipulated and added to throughout history. Don't just believe what people say. Check this stuff out. You guys are following something that can change your life and the lives of people around you. And it's pretty important to check whether this stuff is manufactured or real. By the way, if you really want something to be false, you'll find false stuff. If you want it to be true, you'll find true things. To have an unbiased opinion is very difficult. Historical collaboration can back that up. So I talked about these questions earlier that all religions need to answer: where we come from, origin, what's the meaning. Why are we here? Why is there evil? And how should we live our lives? Origin, meaning, theodicy, and morality. And what will happen to us? What will happen to my mom who passed away? Will I ever see her again? Or grandma, or the people who, hundreds of thousands of people who died in the past? Will I ever see them? So those are important questions that we need to address within ourselves and for our children. I remember I was walking in a cereal aisle with my boy Daniel. He was like 3. And I remember he yelled out completely out of the blue, "Who made God?" Just like that. And we had an interesting theological discussion right there in the cereal aisle in the grocery store. Those of you who want to know the answer to that question is an interesting one. You can ask me a Q&A and you can just get my feedback on it. Fear of the unknown, wish fulfillment, control of the masses, need for social and personal meaning. Those are some of the theories of how religion grew. We don't understand how the world works. We don't know why it's raining. Maybe it's God crying. Maybe I really need to see my mom and my parents who died. Therefore, I create a reality that doesn't exist, and then I follow it. And I create a whole system and a mythology about it. Or do we use it to control the masses, as Karl Marx said? Do I need meetings? So is that why we create religion? Or consider this. You have to be an honest thinker. You have to consider this. Someone or something transcendent entered human history. And as a result, humans worshipped it. That's a possibility too. Man makes religion. Religion does not make man. Religion is the self-conscious and self-esteem of man who has either not yet found himself or has already lost himself again. That's one possibility. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of the heartless world. It is the opium of the people. That's another perspective too. Or religion is the greatest illusion of fulfillment of the oldest, strongest, and most urgent wish of mankind. That's a possibility too. So according to Freud, this is the desire to survive. Yes, even after death, that makes us create a world, an imaginary after-death world that will give us peace, and that this present world is not all there is. Guys, that's a possibility. But it's also possible that there's a God who created and sustained the universe, who spoke to people through good men and women in the past, called prophets. And we just choose to deny them based on the materialism, hedonism, and secularism of our world today. I already covered this. And some thoughts. Pascal, the great mathematician, wrote, "There are only 2 classes of persons who can be called reasonable. Those who serve God with all their hearts because they know him, and those who seek him with all their heart because they do not know him." Let me read that again. Pascal wrote, "There are only 2 classes of persons who can be called reasonable. Those who serve God with all their heart because they know him, and those who seek him with all their heart because they don't know him." They're seeking after something wonderful and great and lovely and majestic and can bring peace to them in their world. They just don't know what it is. Those are only 2 reasonable type of classes of people. Is there a third one? I open up for your thoughts on that one. By the way, I'm going to skip through some of these positions and just summarize some points here. But that if truth is not undergirded by love, whatever you believe, it makes the possessor of that truth obnoxious and that truth repulsive. Keep that in mind when you're trying to share goodness and truth and whatever it is that you want to believe with others. There's nothing worse than a person who really believes something about love and truth and holiness and peace and tranquility and is a complete arrogant jerk, right? Cuts people off, lies, steals, embezzles, but he believes he's very religious. Oh, come on, man. That's like one of the worst things there is. And I think if you read the story of Jesus or even the great prophets of the past, those are the kinds of people they were upset about the most. Okay, let me pause there and stop and see, ask if you have any questions, and then I'll go into the class, which is about how to maximize your chance to get an A. Any questions or comments about the slides and the things I just shared? This is the last chance. Okay, take a look at your screen. Can you guys see this? It should say philosophy of religion or summer 2023. So check here. Yes, okay, great. All right, so this is our class. This is what you see. Here's my little photo. So I asked you guys to upload your photo as well. This is our class. Today is the live class, and I'll put a link to that one for those of you who missed it here. When does class meet? All right, let's answer that question. Class doesn't, quote, meet. We are a spiritual class. We're asynchronic. We don't technically meet. You guys do all this class at your own pace as long as you follow the directions and the schedule set up for the course. Okay? The schedule is here. I have a link to it. When you click that, it tells you what the schedule is. It's right there. So today is June 12th. You should have your introduction form complete and responded to at least 2 other students. By June 19, you discussed portion number 2 is due, and there they are. And there's some tests involved in quizzes. You're supposed to take these by June 16. So you need to read your book to get that. All of them are based on the book. The tests are 300 questions with essay and detailed formats. I'm joking. It's not 300 words or 300 questions. It's only 10 questions based on each chapter that you read. And the discussion boards are fascinating. You are to discuss what you learn in class there. Okay. So I'm going to content here. And I'm clicking table of contents to take me to the beginning. And faculty, who is this guy talking to us? Who's this handsome bald guy? This is Professor Swice, Khaldun Swice. My name is Khaldun in Arabic. I am from Jordan. That's my daughter, Anna Katarina. She's quite feisty, and she reads a lot too, like a lot more than me, actually. It's amazing. Anyway, I am from Jordan. I've been loving philosophy since I came to this country, since I was a child. So I got into it here. You can read up a lot about me here. I have a website, Logically Faithful, although that's not really working right now. You can take a look at the books I published on philosophy of religion and God. They're available on Amazon. I'm a member of the American Philosophical Association and a bunch of other goodies. Okay, that's a little bit about me. And I have a PhD in philosophy from cognitive science. I've taught at Oxford University in England, as well as in, of course, it's the city colleges here for over 14 years. Here's a link to some personal link there, and there's a Wikipedia page there about me. Yeah, there's actually a Wikipedia page about your professor. You can read up about me here, and a lot of the articles I wrote as well. Okay? And I love what I do. So syllabus, there it is. You just click that, you can download your syllabus. And I'm just going over it here for you. Course resources. There are 2 books for the class. Those are the resources there that tell you what they are. I have chapter 1 of the book here. You need to get the whole book. So if you haven't got the book yet, I have chapter 1 available for you right there. And the second book is called the C.S. Lewis's book, The Problem of Pain. So I'm clicking class books. And the first book is called Exploring Philosophy of Religion, 7th edition. And the second book is The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. And that book is available right here as a PDF. Although I strongly recommend you get the book. It's kind of hard to read online. And you can probably get it for a very reasonable price at Amazon or any used bookstore, because the book has been out for like over 40 years. So those are the two books for Philosophy of Religion and Exploring Philosophy of Religion and The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. Assignments. So these are these, how to get an A. So you click that and it tells you how to post to get an A. It's called discussion board format. So in the discussion board right here, it tells you the criteria. Let me make it larger. To get back, no points, don't do anything. To get some points, just say, yes, I agree. Or, yeah, that sounds good, man. Yeah, you go for it, girl. You know, those kind of responses basically give you less than 0 points or 5 points. To get fully 50 points, you have to go over and above the required amount, talk about what happened, wrestle with the topic, argue about it, and even give a reference to a video or a book or a resource to add to the discussion. And that gives you the maximum 50 points for a discussion, which includes 2 responses to others, at least one for one student in response to a different student, or 2 responses to the same student. So the first module here, this is an interesting picture of a supposedly God creating the universe and the world and the dark underground and the light and the archetype of goodness above. And you're to read the overview here of chapter 1. There's a quiz to take, and there are 2 articles to read. One about a person who converts from atheism to faith, and another who converts from faith to atheism. There are 2 articles here to read. And there you go, here are the articles. And then you post on a discussion board, and there it is. There are different ways to come to that. And that's the my religion, my story, and a bunch of people already responded there, see? You already did yours, that's great. You just need to respond to at least 2 others to get full points. So for example, let's go to Abba. There's Erica, there's Liz. And so if I click on Liz's, I could read about her. She says, if I find something better than Yahweh, I'm leaving. My utterance was a bit bold and so justifiable. I was going to dedicate my life to something. I wanted to ensure that it was worth it. At the time, I was searching for the truth about life, spirituality, and God. And she tells about her faith. And what I can do is read about her faith and reply to her and reply to what she said and tell her, hey, I found this part interesting, or I think you're wrong here, Liz, in all due respect about what you said. And here's why. So, and that is how you can get full points. Let's go back to assignments. So again, you have chapter 1 of the book is available for you. You just click that and it'll take you to the PDF of the book. And this is chapter 1. The rest of them, you're going to have to purchase the book. Going back to assignments. Sorry, excuse me. I hit the wrong point. So chapter 2 is about religion and ethics. It's a debate between 2 philosophers on whether God is necessary for morality. You can watch the debate. There's a YouTube debate there and also a transcript of the debate. There's a quiz about it and a discussion in the discussion board. So there are going to be 7 discussion boards and 7 quizzes. You do those, follow directions, keep up with what you're doing, and you should do an A in a class. These are the quizzes. There are only 10 questions each. One of them has 11. Final exam, and here is a detailed study guide of how to get an A on that one. And that's the class. All right. Thank you for your time. Any questions or discussion points before I wrap it up for today? Oh, Joel said he went to Jordan last year. That's great. I'm glad you were able to see my home country. I hope that you get to see the Petra. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be well, go make your world a better place, or you can just complain and make it worse. Don't do that. All right, it was a pleasure being with you. I'll periodically do videos like this. They're not required for you to attend, but they help spark and give some interest to the class. Blessings to you all. You are dismissed.